Here it is. Harmonic convergence geometric resonance between Snell's window and the mean angular radius of the rainbow. Right. So this paper explores a previously unreported harmonic resonance between two distinct optical phenomenon, the critical angle of Snell's window and the mean angular radius of the primary rainbow. Through precise calculations, we show that the complement of the critical angle for total internal reflection at the water-air interface, which is 90 degrees minus 48.6 equals 41.4 degrees, equals the average angular radius of the primary rainbow, which is a mean value of 42 and 40.7 degrees, which is equal also to 41.4. That also relates to duality, because 41.4 is the fractal, the decimal extension part of the square root of 2. Square root of 2 is 1.414. This geometric correspondence, while not casually linked through a traditional optics, presents a striking symmetry suggestive of underlying harmonic principles. We explore implications for classical physics, wave dynamics, and emergent theories of consciousness. And by the way, the relationship here is the refractive index. You can see right here, with the refractive index for water, approximately 1.333. Now, what is that? That is 4/3, which is exactly the Caffrey pyramid proportions. And Caffrey pyramid has, for the first time in its history, probably gotten all of the focus the last several weeks after the Biondi and Malanga assertions related to what's underneath the structure. But this 1.333 relates to water because it's the refractive index for water, and the proportions of the Caffrey pyramid are 4 for its height, and 1/2 its base is 3, which gives you the 1.333. I have a feeling that this is all somehow related to how we perceive and see the world around us as a pyramid of perception.
Just to say that that is the exact pyramid that's in the etching, right? The 4-3 Caffrey pyramid.
Which etching are you referring to?
The Jura, the image that we looked at.
No, there's no 4-3. There's no, I mean, not that I see there. There's not like a 4/3 relationship inside the Dürer thing, or the pyramid is also in there. But it is hidden within Metatron's cube because it's Metatron's cube that allows you to draw all of the pyramids of Giza Plateau, for sure.
Oh, I think I was thinking about the Philosopher's Stone. It's the Philosopher's Stone pyramid that's in there.
Philosopher's Stone pyramid is also in there, for sure. And so is Caffrey when you look at it from how to find angles of reference without any measurements that are inside of the Metatron's cube itself. It's the geometric plan for it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I mean, that's that whole idea of being underwater and then having this tube perception, and then everything is mirrored. I mean, that's pretty wild. I think that's like a refraction of water. I think that's going to be something to explore, especially as it's this link that you've now made with the golden angle. I think it's that's a whole nother. It's like this. We've sort of looked at life through the air and through water droplets, but now it's like, how do we see the world if we were in the water itself? Because that's its reciprocal.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting, and I'm super excited to finally figured out some of the meaning, and I'm sure there's still more to it we haven't yet cracked. But definitely, I'd say in the last month, the amount of information coming in is off the charts. It's the highest I've ever had. The amount of the density of the information coming in is super, super intense, and it seems easier than ever to tap into what's on the other side of veils.
Yeah, those the lunar and solar eclipses, and then this shift in the planets, all shifting into Aries. It's like they went through that 0 point from Pisces into Aries. And so like there's this sort of rebirth, this new energy. And of course, Neptune shifting that way. So the veil is being lifted. So yeah, it feels really good. It feels really good. It feels like there's a new surge. All these secrets underground, under the ocean, how we perceive. It's like we're now seeing the subconscious perception of reality as well.
And people have been saying that somehow pi in a different base numbering system is actually 4, right? And I discovered the way. It's kind of a funny story. I was in Mexico driving with DJ Anna and with Jade, and they were like, "How can you drive and think about all this math stuff?" And this truck pulls in front of me, and it had like on the back window like a 12-digit number, and I was like, "Oh man, this is like a Robert Grant nightmare because I have to figure out why this number is coming in front of me." When you realize that you're in a mental matrix and everything's a synchronicity, if you know there's a synchronicity and you don't figure out the synchronicity, it can be a bit maddening at times. And so I'm looking at this, and they're like, "How can you be driving and thinking about this stuff?" And I said, "Oh, I figured it out." And they're like, "What is it?" And I said, "Oh, that number on the back of the truck is actually pi squared." And it was perfectly pi squared.
And someone had a sticker of this.
And they had it written in paint on the back of their window. And it couldn't be like the price of the car in pesos or something. It didn't make sense. It must have been some sort of telephone number or something, but with extra digits. So I was like, what the heck, man? It's pi squared. And I knew that something was important about that, because I've said before, I don't believe that the speed of light is actually the speed of light. Mm-hmm. I believe that what we call the speed of light is actually the speed of our perception. It's the rendering speed in the matrix, right? It's the rendering speed. It's the time it takes for us to recognize something and perceive it. But as we go into the next dimension, the fifth dimensional experience, I believe that the speed of our perception is going to greatly increase. And if you're able to increase beyond the speed of light, then what happens to your perception of time? Remember when Superman flew around the planet faster than the speed of light? And this is based on real physics. If you go faster than the speed of light, you actually make time reverse.
Well, that would make sense. It kind of like, when you're on the highway and you see alloy wheels, and at a certain speed, they go backwards, right? The actual alloy wheels look like they're spinning backwards. That, like, the threshold of like the vision and the speed, somehow then, like you said, it like starts to reverse the polarity, or seemingly seems to. And so, yeah, that's I love that idea, and I totally agree that I think that what we think is seconds was different to what they had as seconds back when they were building the pyramids and beyond. So I think their idea of time was different for sure.
So let's just pull on this string a little bit further, right? How interesting does this get? So if we really think this through, what happens to the speed of our perception? And then I realized, oh, it must be related to the same proportion of what we see in this water, of 4/3 and 3/4, which is written in Da Vinci's Encryption of Cafe Pyramid, where I overlaid it with the actual pyramid structure, and where he had inner chambers was matching the actual location of the real inner chambers. Plus there were more chambers, but we already know he did the same thing with the Vitruvian Man and the Great Pyramid, not Cafe Pyramid. And we know we've found structures now that he said what they were going to be. We know that the next chamber that's already been discovered, its location, is at the throat chakra line, where he placed a line on top of Vitruvian Man. He cut his man into 14 parts, just like Set cut his brother into 14 parts. That was the tell. And also, we know that it's related to this because Vitruvian Man has 3 diamonds on his abdomen that represent the belt stars of Orion as well. And Orion is the constellation of Osiris, right? There's so many cryptography things that are implanted in this and embedded within it that it's kind of beyond any question now. But what was interesting about that is that if you square pi and you square Euler, our whole time relationship today is related to Euler over pi. So Euler over pi gives us 0.865, right? And if you just subtract 1 from that, it comes out to 0.864. And then if you add 1 to the front of it, it's 1.864, both of which are relational to time and the speed of light.
Wow.
So 1.864 times 10 to the 5th power is the speed of light. It's one of the measured values for the speed of light in miles per second. And the number of seconds in one day is 86,400.
The sun, yeah.
Which is also the diameter of the sun, 864,000 miles. So wait a minute. So if we're going to expand to a faster speed of perception, is this going to have an impact, and what's it going to be? Is it going to be exponential? So let's see what happens if we take Euler over pi equals, because you have to make the conversion also between sexagesimal math for Euler, because scalar waves are measured differently than transverse waves are. Scalar waves are in the scalar or compression wave or longitudinal wave category, which requires base 60 math. Whereas transverse waves are based on base 10 math. So the merger of base 10 and base 60, right, is basically the merger of base 10 and base 12 is actually base 60, because that's where you find 60 is divisible by both 5 and 6. Yeah. 5 times 12 equals 60, and 6 times 10 equals 60.
Yeah.
So these are the most highly composite numbers. You can think of it as the opposite of prime numbers. Prime numbers are prime because they have no divisible factors, but the opposite of prime numbers is what I call time numbers, because we use them to reckon time.
Yeah. And that's 60.
They're the most highly composite numbers, the most divisible factors.
And that 60 number, it feels like it's you keep saying, when you were saying about the speed limit, that's this 60 number in everywhere that I've worked with, it seems like it's a limit of the 3rd dimension. So, and multiples of that 60, or the hexagram, or whatever 6 shape that is, the whole 666, this idea of the atoms in the body, like this 6 number feels like the 3D limit. And so then that's the threshold that what do we do to shift into the next one? And you also mentioned about Euler being like a limit field. So like, what do you feel that can how
Euler
do you
and
need
pi, Euler divided by pi is giving us that relationship of time and the speed of light. And remember, the two references for the longitudinal and latitudinal references for the Great Pyramid are literally time and the speed of light. The latitude is 29.9792458 degrees. The longitude is 31 degrees, 8 minutes, and 3 seconds. One of them, the first one, is exactly the speed of light down to 1 meter accuracy per second. And Larry Paul just wrote a paper on this, proving that as well. And it was published in a peer-reviewed journal. In addition to that, the longitude, which didn't even exist when the pyramids were built, turns out to be 1 over pi. And then when you take that, it's 31, so just put in your calculator, 3183. 1 over 3183 equals 314159.
And I think, I'll have to check this, but I think that's and this is going to be a mad number, I think that's the amount of seconds in one solar year.
Maybe. I don't know this number, so I'll have to go back and check that too.
I've calculated it before, and it's very, very close. So I'll have to have a look at that again. But that would kind of make sense, right? That this speed limit and the sun and the seconds of the day, it's at this threshold. So yeah, it kind of makes me wonder if the sun and our relationship changes, or maybe it's the recognition that we're moving towards Sirius, that central sun relationship changes, and then that's how things speed up or things shift.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that. And also we know that the 360-day calendar that the Egyptians and the Sumerians used is tied to this base 60 system too. And the reason for this is that you've got a 365, if you include leap year, a 365.4 day year for solar calendar. And for the lunar calendar, it's 354.6. So you add the two together and divide them by 2, and they come out to exactly 360. The mean between the solar year and the lunar year equals 360 days, exactly. We've just been ignoring the lunar aspect of the year.
Yeah.
So there's great wisdom in this. Think of it as 2 backbone on DNA, because time is also DNA. And the center point of the nucleotide pair that creates it is right at 360. Yeah. It's so fascinating. But anyway, the point is that if we now take pi and square it, and we take Euler and square it, what's the relationship going to be? Euler squared and pi squared. So if 4 over 3 is pi over, if pi over Euler equals 1.1547, and then you take its opposite, right? It's reciprocal. Euler over pi equals 0.864, right? 0.865, and then 0.864, you minus 1, and then add 1 to the front of it, is giving us the relationship of time, just like the Great Pyramid does. Its latitude is the speed of light, its longitude, 31 degrees, and the decimal orientation of that, converting it, is 31 degrees, 0.1342. Divide that by 360 degrees, and you have 0.0864. The same 864 again. So one axis of the Great Pyramid is the speed of light, the other axis is time.
Wow. And that's so beautiful. I'm thinking as well with the dodecahedron, that's 648.
Yeah,
so
that's right. It's a permutation of the same number, right? Absolutely. And that's probably why the dodecahedron is considered to be this mysterious thing, right? What does this permutation mean? And this is what Kepler thought about the dodecahedron. But if we look at this in a slightly different way and say, okay, what happens if this really is about human consciousness speeding up, that it can exceed the speed of light, the speed of perception, then you would consider that maybe the relationship, instead of being 0.864, right, for the seconds in a day, then it's going to be Euler squared divided by pi squared.
Okay.
And guess what that equals? Oh, we got a thumbs up from the AI. And they're just playing with us. They're messing with us. Guess what that equals? What that equals is 0.75, which is 3 over 4. The same proportions of Caffrey pyramid. It's the reciprocal of the refractive index of water, 1.33333.
Wow. And they're both making the 7, which is the same as that 34 in the magic square. That's a 7. Same as that Yahweh was the 7s. Wow. So
the speed of consciousness expanding to be able to exceed the speed of light. And it would be roughly, like 3 times as much as the speed of light. Now imagine if all of a sudden your speed of consciousness could speed up to 3 times the speed of light. You could literally, if you could perceive in both ways, the 4th and 5th dimension. The 4th dimension is forward arrow of time. The 5th dimension is the relationship and understanding that time actually flows both directions. It goes forward and it goes backwards at the same time. And if we understood that, then you could control the whole time experience altogether. You're no longer bound by it in the same way.
I've got a fun experiment you can try. with this,
Yeah.
showing that it appears as if we're going into like the clockwise and counterclockwise, but it's the same direction. So I always say to people, like, if you take your finger and create a circle clockwise below your eyes, and then when you bring it up over your head and you keep spinning it in the same direction, and it's now above you, when you look above, it's going counterclockwise. So you haven't changed the direction at all, but you're seeing it from above, procession, and precession. So it's really as simple as that. It's actually moving in one direction, but it appears that it's
just like this, Rob.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You got time flowing one direction, and then the backwards motion of time is the longer precessional cycle. This is procession. This is precession. It's a loop.
That's a hypercube. That's the exact motion of the hypercube, that it turns inside out and then outside in. It's that folding in upon itself, which is that whole idea of that your inner world becomes the outer world then becomes your inner world. So yeah, that's a beautiful image.
Time flows both directions in procession of equinox, and we go backwards in precession. It's just a longer cycle. Just as you can see here, it's wound more tightly here. 1 degree of the rotation in procession is 1 day approximately, because we have a 365-day calendar, right? And by the same token, you've got the same thing, except that in the longer cycle of 24,000 years, it's 66.6 years for 1 degree.
That's 6 again. You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
Apart from the hypercube, well, we have the 2-strand nuclear DNA, which you could say is the bigger cycle, and inside each cell you have 2 strands of maternal DNA. So this is like the paternal-maternal DNA. You've got the nuclear DNA and the maternal DNA working exactly the same as the process. One's inside the other.
Yep, absolutely right. So I think we're about to start perceiving time differently. Because just like the 100th monkey effect, as soon as somebody cracks, as soon as one lab rat solves the maze, eventually all the lab rats start to solve the maze all around the world. Because there is a such thing as collective consciousness, collective awareness. So I'm really excited that we found all the 137 references. Of course, that has significance to me. My birthday on leap years is also the 137th day.
That's mad.
So here we go. What a really cool thing. So Albrecht Dürer's wooden etch, now at least partially decrypted. I think we'll probably find some more within it, but I think it's telling us about Jacob's ladder up the chakras. And so when we get up to the crown chakra, which is where some people are right now, once we get there, we have to break through the energetic knot. And there are these knots, and they're called granties, right? And so you pronounce it differently. You keep calling it grunty, which is like, that drove me nuts when my name was that when I was in junior high, and people would say, "Hey, Robert Grunt."
They're great.
Yes.
I'm with you.
And so you didn't even realize that you were like touching on this thing that was like traumatizing for me as a child.
Oh, my bad.
So basically, the grantis, there are 3. One is between the root chakra and the sacral. Another is, that's called the Brahma granti. There's one called the Vishnu granti between the solar plexus and the heart chakra, the Anahata. And then there's one right before the crown chakra, and it's called the Rudra granti. And Rudra is spelled R-U-D-R-A, and it's the fierce aspect of Shiva. It's like angry Shiva.
Yeah.
And then it's what would be kind of equivalent to Kali. And the granti is a knot. So you could say that the universe itself is a knot, right? And that kind of looks like it could be a knot too, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was just thinking about the ring past knot. You know, it's like a threshold.
Yes, exactly. So the cosmic knot or the cosmic granti is the universe or the U-inverse. And to go up the chakras, you have to have an ego. Otherwise, you may not do it. That's your motivation for going up the chakras, right? Think about it. But then when we finally get to the final door, we have to realize that we're no one. And in realizing that we're no one, we realize that we are everyone. And we are waking in the dream. Just like when I go to sleep at night, I have a dream. Sometimes I have lucid dreaming. Sometimes I don't. When I'm not having the lucid dream, I don't know I'm in the dream. When I am having a lucid dream, I know I'm in the dream. And this happens now more often than ever before for me. It's very rare that I don't know that I'm in the dream.
This reminds me of Ramdas's famous quote of Hanuman. And he says, when I don't know who I serve you. When I know who I am you. And so exactly that, there's a separation point of like, okay, I'm in service to the divine and this process, and Hanuman, the god, he's in service to him. And then, but when he remembers who he is, he's Hanuman himself, and it's like you are the collective. And so I think it's a really beautiful quote that he shares. And it's like that daily reminder of being in service and then also realizing that you are this wholeness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you realize that you become no one at the moment that you push through the Rudra Granthi, or also known as the Shiva Granthi. And Rudra is just a reference to Rama. It's Orion. And what we found through all of our work together is that, the story of the Ramayana, as well as the story of Rama and Sita. Mm-hmm. And actually, both Rama and Sita are depicted inside of the Orion constellation. The same story over and over and over again. And it goes all the way up to the merger of Logos and Sophia. Shiva and Shakti are represented by the exact same thing. And it's the same as this logo, too. How funny is that? This is the Dur solid right here. Yeah. And it represents Shiva and Shakti, the masculine and feminine finding perfect balance. Divinity is not being without darkness. No, divinity is understanding it and accepting it and becoming friends with your shadow and no longer judging it. That's how you change the outer world around you. Stop judging yourself negatively, and you will stop judging the outer world around you. It's not a universe, it's a U-inverse. So this same Orion constellation is the Mirgashira, right, which is the deer's head in the Vedic system. It's represented by Soma. Soma is the deer that was chased by Orion the hunter. What this is actually teaching us is that all the separation that we perceive around us is not separation at all. It's just different perspectives.